Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the JJRC MO2 VTOL plane. The idea behind this guy is that you take off like a multi-rotor and then transition to a plane, which I like because hand launching small models like this is always a challenge. So let's take a look at the specs. It has a 450mm wingspan made of EPO foam and weighs 310 grams. The three brushless motors are 1307-2300 kV with the front two attached to a servo mechanism. Now the manual states that the servos are 4.3 grams with metal gears, and the reason that I mention this is because this guy is a copy of a copy, and the previous versions had issues with the servo stripping in a crash. Now I can't confirm whether these servos actually do have metal gears without taking them apart, but what I would say is that a 4.3 gram servo is too small to bear the load of these motors in the first place, so that's an area of concern in general. And with the wingspan being so small, in aeroplane mode it's going to have to fly really fast, and the motors are going to be tilted forwards, so if it hits the ground, the tilt mechanism is going to get pushed underneath the aircraft, so I think regardless of the servo, something is going to break. The props are a bespoke size at around 4.3 inches, and there's no mention of the pitch, but you are given a spare set in the package, and you can buy them as a spare part with there being so many copies. Mine did come with a little bit of damage to the foam out of the box, and the canopy is semi-translucent and is held in via some clips. You're given a 3S 1000 mAh LiPo with an XT30 connector, but you have to use some provided foam to wedge the battery in, otherwise it would be loose inside. The back two fins are detachable, they just clip in, so it's quite easy to store. Then on the top and the bottom are some LEDs that flash when the battery is getting low, so it will tell you when it's time to land. You can actually access the flight controller from the underneath by undoing a screw, and the antenna for the receiver is placed nicely on the tail. But these stickers that cover up the servo wires aren't very good, and they keep peeling off, so it's probably best to replace those with some proper tape. The manual states that you will get a 12-minute flight time with this guy. However, that is going to vary depending on how much you use multi-rotor mode, because it will draw more current in a hover and will be more efficient in aeroplane mode. You can also see up front there's an adjustable camera mount, but it's empty, so this isn't an FPV model. I do hear that they're bringing an FPV version out, but if I were to attach a camera to this guy, then I wouldn't put it there, because when it's hovering in multi-rotor mode, it's just going to be facing the ground, so the camera really needs to be on top, perhaps above the canopy or on the nose, but it would need a black strip on the nose, otherwise the white foam would screw around with the dynamic range of the camera. It's a ready-to-fly model, so it comes with a transmitter, which is mode switchable via screws on the back, so you don't have to take it apart to switch it, which I like. And the instructions are really good, so I won't bore you in how to do that. The sticks feel pretty loose, which I'm not a fan of, and there's something that really concerns me with this aircraft, which is that it has to be armed and disarmed to start and stop the motors, regardless of what mode you're in. And the reason they have done that is because the model has a built-in barometer, so when the throttle stick is in the middle, it will maintain its height, and that suggests to me that they are aiming this model at beginners. But when it transitions to an aeroplane, the model still self-levels itself, but it's going to be really fast and difficult to fly. So even if you crash it and the servos survive and don't get stripped, the motors will still need disarming. So for me, this shouldn't be aimed at a beginner. They need to get rid of that altitude hold mode, or at least have the motors stop at 0 throttle. You can turn the gyro off completely to do rolls and loops, but you can only do that in aeroplane mode and not multi-rotor mode, and you do that by pressing the red button when in aeroplane mode. However, a small model like this is going to be a complete handful and could end up in disaster for me, even when I've been flying 3D aerobatics for nearly 30 years. Speaking of 3D, there is one last switch position which sends the model vertical, where essentially it becomes a bicopter, but you need to make sure not to use this feature on a windy day. In fact, you need a really calm day in general to fly this guy, which we don't get here in the UK ever, so this one could be interesting. There's an emergency stop function which will stop all of the motors, but it involves you holding down the two buttons at the bottom of the transmitter and the red button at the same time, which it's going to be too late by the time you have found it. There's also two different rates, 80% and 100%. Left in the box is a charger, but it will take a couple of hours to charge up the included LiPo, so I'll be using a hobby grade charger. And lastly, you're given a mini screwdriver and a couple of spare screws. Okay, let's give this guy a try. You first have to plug in the LiPo of the model first, which is unusual, but that's the way you do it. Then I'm just making sure none of the wires are going to get in the way of the canopy. Then I've got my throttle at the bottom. This might confuse some of you because I fly mode 1, but my throttle is on that side when it's mode 1. You then turn the transmitter on by holding the button, and then it's the throttle up and down to bind it to the model. And these lights here have gone solid. Now it's a sunny day and I can see these LEDs, so that's pretty good. But you'll notice if I lift the throttle up, I'm in multi-rotor mode there and nothing happens, so you have to arm the model. Now this field is probably a little bit too small to fly this guy in aeroplane mode. The problem is the model's that small that when it does go into aeroplane mode, it's just going to zoom off and this camera isn't going to catch it. So I'm going to do a little bit of hovering first, try the different rates and go from there. It is a little bit breezy today. It goes from flat calm to big gusts of wind, which isn't great, but anyways, let's arm the model and see how I get on. So you can only arm it in multi-rotor mode, which is the top switch there, and it's a long press here to unlock it. So I'm going to long press it with the throttle down, but you'll see it almost instantly disarms, so you have to be really quick. So, and another thing you'll notice as well is that I've lifted the throttle up to halfway, but it's just idling, and that is the barometer. So I'm gonna have to go up on the throttle a little bit more, and then it just leaps into life. Wow, that's really strange. Yeah, the wind is definitely blowing it. And the reason I say it's really strange is because it's like a tilt rotor. When I push forward, it doesn't dip forward. You see, the model stays flat. So if you wanted to FPV this guy, it'd be just looking at the ground with the camera where it is. That is very strange. Let's see if I can bring it close. Yeah, even this little bit of wind here is knocking it about. Trying to get it lower, but that altitude hold there is just keeping it in the same place. Don't know if it's going to come through on the camera. You can see those motors moving there. But yeah, that's quite bizarre. So even if you are familiar with multi-rotors or quadcopters, it's taken a minute here to get used to the hover, because when you tilt it forward, the model doesn't tilt forward, the motors do. So it actually looks like it's just a plane flying nicely. So this is probably actually the capacity that I'd want to fly this guy in. So let's just go up on the rate. You can see the wind pushing it back. So 100% rate now. Oh yeah, that's definitely sped it up. So yeah, it's a slightly different competency than a multi-rotor or a quadcopter, and then of course flying it like an aeroplane is a different competency again. So you really have to have your wits about you with this guy, I think. It's an interesting model. So let's see if I can do a kind of hands-off. I don't think so because the wind is just blowing it. That's hands-off. The throttle slightly down. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go up there. So that's how much wind that we've got. It does hold its altitude. Slightly dropping there actually, so needs to go slightly above. Can I see those LEDs underneath? Oh yeah, you can see those really well. So that's good for the battery. So I'm gonna go back to 80% rates, and I'm gonna have my finger on the trigger, switching between multi-rotor mode or tilt rotor mode and airplane mode. Get a bit of height on. Let's see what happens. Whoa! Yeah, it's fast. There's a little bit of a twitch as well when it transitions. Trying to keep it in close. I mean, it looks close to me, but with the wide angle on the camera, probably not going to look close. Tip stall there, not really surprising because I'm flying this thing a little bit too slow for its size, and when I do a turn it is stalling. Okay, I'm gonna take it out of aeroplane mode for a second and flick it back into quadcopter mode, because I want to try out that bicopter mode, that's what you can call it. And for the way that wind's blowing, even with 100% rate, I think it's gonna struggle, or the wind is gonna push it back. So let's give it a go. There we go. That back propeller has stopped. I'm bringing the throttle down, and the wind has just calmed enough just for me to have control of it. That is lucky. Now, you can't land like that. An altitude hold is working. But really, I don't think you'd be able to do this if there was any more wind. So ailerons, interestingly, sort of become yaw, so that means that rudder is like gonna do a spin. Yeah. So that works. A little weird with the altitude hold though. You come down on the throttle, you don't get an instant response. Oh, and I'm feeling a gust of wind coming along, and I'm finding myself having to push forward even more. Oh, look at that. And it's getting blown around. There we go, hands off. So let's fall forward there. Oh, it's just doing that on its own. That's not fun. Okay, back into quadcopter mode. It's a really frustrating day today because it goes flat calm and then you get a gust and it just completely upsets everything. Well, there's only one mode that I haven't tried, so let's go back into airplane mode, and I'm leaving this one till last because this may be where this model meets its end in this field. Oh, there we go. I didn't even go into that mode, so I have disarmed it. I saw a fin come up there, but it just tip stalled. So let's see if the motors have survived, or should I say the servos. So wow, big mess here. So that doesn't look good. First thing to do, oh, something has broken there. Yeah, that's not good. Let's take out the battery first of all. You see the servo twitched there, so just wonder if that can just lift back up like that. Has that just popped out, or is it actually broken? Difficult to say, but that I think went way past, and it's difficult to know where. Yeah, so the servo, it's gone past its point that it should do. So actually no, I think that one's okay. Will this just slot back in there? But it's upside down. So where are we on there? Yeah, so that's straight there. There we go. So it actually did push back the servo, and we've lost the prop as well. But the moment of truth is, have the servos been stripped? So let me just see if that will clip back in there. Yeah, nothing's broken there, so that should just clip in there, and we'll replace the prop and see if it has actually stripped the servos. So amazingly, it has survived. I don't know for how long. What actually happened was this screw here had come loose and this horn had popped out, so I just put it back in. Now the servos did go all the way around, but they don't seem to have stripped. So let's see how much longer this thing will last. So I am in the multi-rotor mode, and I'm going to press the arm button and then go up on the throttle, and it's back in the air, as you can see. It really does not like flying in aeroplane mode though. Even when you fly fast, I think you need a really big area, and even then I think it's going to do these tip stalls. So if I stick it into aeroplane mode, oh, it is such a jolt when it does that. And now I'm just worried about the wind there, so yeah, very windy above those trees. So I'm having to do a really high bank. It is not fun. So lastly, let's take all the stability off. And I think that says it all. Why won't it disarm? Look at that, it's just not disarming at all. Ah, that's not good. Yeah, that is just not disarming at all. How strange. Ah, something is broken, isn't it? Well, this servo isn't moving at all, so that's dead. Right, unplug the battery. So one of the motors just wouldn't disarm for some reason, so I unplugged the battery, plugged it back in, and the motors have just sat back up, and all of the lights are green. So I'm gonna unlock it, long press, and everything is working again. What is going on with this thing? It's still flying. I tell you what, I'm not sure I could recommend this thing, but man, it can take a beating. So maybe they have replaced those cogs in those servos with metal gears. But I am determined to see if I can get this flying in 3D mode. So I'm just going to press it and see what happens. Okay, 3D mode now. And it's flying. Yeah, it's not stabilizing itself. Kind of do a roll. Yes, roll. It needs a bigger field. So maybe I'm being a little bit unfair on it. It's actually flying nicer now that it's not in stability mode, but it does have its odd moments. Wow, it just goes crazy. So yeah, it's using the propellers to do crazy loops on itself. If you want to do that, yeah, I'm getting into this now, actually. Just that turn there's a little bit of a problem. Need a slightly bigger field. Much better without stability mode. Oh, and then just a little bit of wind though. You see the wind's calmed down as well. That makes a big difference. Let's go for full throttle and then some crazy flips. But of course it's stalling when it does that. I think this is the longest that I've actually flown it for. There you go. That's it. We'll just do turns that way. I think that's better. And we're turning away. That's the way the wind's blowing. I think that's the problem. Look at that. Oh! Disarm quick. Oh, there we go. Back into quadcopter mode. And it's still going. Wow. Yeah, I must have some sort of updated version, because this is getting absolutely battered and it's still flying. What are the LEDs saying? The LEDs still say everything is fine. So let's flick into airplane mode and then 3D mode. Did it go into 3D mode? Wow, yeah, I think so. Oh my goodness, what is it doing? Long pressing the disarm button, something flew off it. So once again we've got one of the motors turned upside down. I'm gonna unplug it. Looks like the canopy has come apart this time. That's over here. So yeah, it's a tricky one this, because I guess I need a bigger space to fly it, and it was actually getting a lot of enjoyment flying it when it wasn't in stability mode. So if you are an expert 3D flyer, then you can do those crazy tricks with it. But on the other hand, beginner friendly, absolutely not. Durable, well actually yes. I'm just gonna try actually to see if this servo is still okay. And it's back in the air. You cannot rate this thing. I have tried. I have proved it. Okay, well, I found a bigger place to fly this thing in. The only problem is there's so much open space that even though it's the same day, it's a lot more windy. But anyways, let's go for a takeoff and see how it performs here. I've got 100% rates and taking off in the multi-rotor mode. Wow, it's really getting blown around. That is full forward on 100% rate. I'm gonna have to go into airplane mode and then also 3D mode. There it goes, it twitches. Hopefully gonna be able to get more speed up here. Yeah, that is much better. The only problem is I don't know whether the camera's gonna pick it up, but you really have to fly this guy fast to get the best out of it. That's into wind there, and it's pretty much full throttle. Otherwise we're gonna get a stall. Still struggles around the corners. I think because it's using that differential
thrust for the rudder doesn't quite act like a rudder. Yeah, it's got some power, this. See if we can do some daft stuff now. There we go. You never know which way you're going to come out, but at least you can do it a few mistakes high. Oh, that wind is really catching it though. It is really gusting here as well. Yeah, crazy loops. There we go. Came out the right way around. Oh, this is much better. This is a lot more fun, although it did something weird there. Think again. Yeah, it's stalling because that's into wind. And then on the turn, full throttle. It's a struggle. And then into the sun, I bet, for the camera. Let's get a roll in. Nice roll, but yeah, 100% rates needed here. Do really like this crazy flip thing that you can do with it though. That is a lot of fun. And you can probably do it on the rudder as well. The only thing is, I'm not sure if it would recover. Let's go up high and then just put, yeah, does it on the rudder as well, except it's crashing, so controlled crash. Right, okay, so let's see, let's go for full rudder again. No, oh, maybe it is just on the elevator then. I assume that if you put full rudder in and full throttle, no, it's, yeah, it is just the elevator. Oh, and all of a sudden just the wind disappears. That's what's happening today. It's a strange one even here in this big field. Lots of open space. So to do a loop, presumably you have to go really steady on the elevator. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's really ballooning with the wind. So to get back into quadcopter mode, can I just flick the switch? The answer is yes, and we have stability mode. Only problem is, into wind, it is struggling. Look, there we go, it's died down a little bit. So can I actually land it on the pad or close to the pad because it's windy? Let's have a see. Oh man, it is really getting pushed around. This is what it's meant to do. Take off vertically and land vertically, but fly like a plane. So let's see if I can get on the mat. There we go. Throttle down, disarmed, success. So there you go. If you have a huge amount of space, you can actually get a lot out of this model. And you know what? It has proved to be really durable. Alright, it's taken a lot of hits, but the servos haven't stripped, and I did eventually manage to have some fun with it. So if you liked what you saw, then I'll put a link in the video description if you wish to get one. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.